You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 3. It's episode 57. Cubs close out the first half. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on all the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram. Of course, we are on Facebook. You can also email Crawly and I, flythew670@gmail.com. All right, Crawly, we had a big 4-game series down in St. Louis against the hated Cardinals, and things got going really well on Friday night with the professor on the mound.
Yeah, you and I made our predictions on the last episode, and I think we both said split. I thought the Cubs played really well considering, you didn't have no Shota Imanaga, no Justin Steele. They had all their guys. They were rested. They had their 4 guys ready to go. And I think the Cubs, considering they didn't have their best pitchers out there, really kind of showed that, that was a 5-2 road trip against Baltimore and the Cardinals. And if you would have told me before that road trip that they would have finished 5-2, you would have taken it, right?
Absolutely. We would have been fist bumping, we would be chest bumping, we'd be high fiving, we'd be flying the W 5 out of 7 games. Yes, we would take that. It's just how games 2 and 3 went, which we'll get to in a minute, that kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, and to be honest, game 1 is the one that scared me the most. Kyle Hendricks versus Sonny Gray. When you looked at that pitching matchup, but here's the thing, with Sonny, he's been pitching well, and Kyle's season's been a struggle. But the one thing is, and we've talked about this before, sometimes guys just have good numbers against certain teams, and that's Kyle versus the Cardinals. For whatever reason, he has their number. And so, the Cubs continued to play great baseball on Friday like they had been playing with the sweep of the Orioles, offense, defense, and pitching. All the things we wanted to see when the season started. Bottom of the first, 2 out, Wilson Contreras hits a single, and the Cardinals, you could tell, were trying to test Seiya, right? So Wilson's going to try to stretch this into a double, easily thrown out by Seiya Suzuki. I know Seiya's had some rough defensive play, but I mean, that one was ridiculous. I don't know what he was thinking on that. I remember Wilson constantly running into outs when he was on the Cubs, so it's nice to see him do it for the Cardinals.
It was nice to see him do it for the Cardinals. You are 100% right on that one.
Right. The Cubs didn't get their first hit until the 3rd. Miles Mastrobuoni hits a leadoff single, and then the Cubs decide to play some small ball, right? PCA hits a bunt single, and God, does that kid run down the line. And then Miguel Amaya bunted to move the runners to 2nd and 3rd. You got 1 out now. Nico grounded out, so the Cubs take a 1-0 lead. Run scores there. Top of the 4th, Ian Happ hits a 1-out double, and look who's heating up, Dansby Swanson with an RBI single to increase the Cubs lead to 2-0. Some good defense in the 4th. Alec Burleson hit a leadoff single. Wilson Contreras popped out. And then Kyle Hendricks struck out Paul Goldschmidt. And Miguel Amaya threw out Burleson trying to steal 2nd. When was the last time?
Who knew that was possible? I mean, we've seen the other Cubs catcher do it a couple of times, but who knew that Miguel Amaya was capable of throwing out a base run?
Yeah, strike him out, throw him out, and great catch and tag by Nico on that play as well. That was really fast tag on that. Top of the 7th, Miles Mastrobuoni singled, PCA struck out. Miguel Amaya, his offense is heating up. He singled to put runners at the corners with 1 out. Nico Horner hit a sac fly to put the Cubs up 3-0. And, Kyle Hendricks was just phenomenal. 7 scoreless innings, gave up 5 hits, struck out 3, and walked 1. He did not give up a single extra base hit, and none of the base runners that reached made it to 2nd base. So after a rough start against Milwaukee and leaving the game early against the Angels with the back issue, great bounce back. I mean, seven innings. I couldn't believe it.
Now that's a definition of a quality start, Carl, right there.
Absolutely.
That's a quality start. Okay. Kyle Hendricks with a quality start, no doubt about it.
Now, key moment of this game comes at the top of the 8th with 2 outs. Christopher Morel and Dansby Swanson hit back-to-back singles to put runners at the corners. Ali Marmol goes to his pen, takes out righty John King, puts in lefty Chris Roycroft to get that lefty-lefty matchup with Miles Mastrobuoni. Council counters with pinch hitter David Bodie, a righty. King throws a wild pitch that allows Swanson to reach 2nd, but not far enough for Morel to score. King had Bodie at 1-2, but Bodie fouled off 3 pitches, finally gets one he can turn on, hits one down the left field line, Karam's off the wall, 2-run score. Cubs up 5-0. And Dustin, adding on the runs. These are all the things that haven't happened for most of the season as far as,
correct.
Some small ball, good defense, adding on extra runs that you need. These are the things that matter, and they didn't do it. Unfortunately, some bad news in the bottom of the 8th. Luke Little comes in. He does not record an out as he felt something in his shoulder. He's pulled from the game. We're really hoping. We don't know yet exactly what it is, but hoping he's okay. Mark Leiter came in and pitched a scoreless 8th. Hunter Biggie came in for his second appearance in the 9th inning, and let's just say it did not go as well as his first with a 5-0 lead. He walked the leadoff batter, Alec Burleson. He got Alec Burleson to fly out for the first out, but then he walked Wilson Contreras to put runners at first and second. And that's the growing pain with young pitchers. You're leading 5-0 in the 9th. You cannot walk 2 batters. But again, that's the growing pains, right?
Right, that's the growing pains. Yeah, and again, it's not the way you do things, especially against the Cardinals, because you never know what's going to happen in a series like that.
Right, and it got close there. Cardinals are on the board. They lead 5-1. Biggie's day is done. Hector Neris comes in. He gets Brennan Donovan to line out. Then he walks Nolan Arenado to load the bases. Okay, so you're taking a look here. You got three walks to load the bases in the 9th inning when you had a 5-0 lead.
Yeah,
so now you got the tying run at the plate in Lars Nootbaar, but old Hector Neris strikes him out. Cubs fly the W for the 5th game in a row. Couple notes here, Dustin. Kyle Hendricks improved to 14-4 in 28 games, 27 of those starts, with a 2.51 ERA against St. Louis. He has not allowed a run in his last 16 and a third innings versus the Cardinals, going back to July 30, 2023. And I always like listening to the post game. And Kyle, listen to how Kyle describes pitching to Miguel Amaya.
Miggy all day. Miggy all day was so engaged, keeping me in it, calling the right pitches to get me back on track and to give me enough room for error, kind of to get me through that. And then Seiya throwing out Willie there in the first was huge, keeping him out of scoring position. Miggy throwing the guy out at second there in the 3rd or 4th. And when I got into the stretch in the 3rd, it kind of quickened me up a little bit, and I started to find it more. So I really settled in and felt a lot better 4th through the 7th from then on.
Miggy all day. And when you hear Kyle say stuff,
total pro to go ahead and give that guy who needs a little extra love right now.
I really, again, though, I know Miguel Amaya doesn't throw guys out, and his hitting has gotten better. He's a much better hitter than what he's shown at the major league level. It's very hard to learn on the job, to have to learn how to catch these guys, learn what they want to throw, have to do all the work that you have to do, plus learn how to hit major league hitting. But I will tell you, they do love throwing to Miggy, and that's what Kyle's talking about. Dustin, after struggling for 2 months to get clutch hits, the Cubs are now super clutch, and this game was no different. 3 of the Cubs' 5 runs in the game came on 2-out hits. And then how about this one, Dustin? Paul Goldschmidt's RBI single off Hunter Biggie in the 9th snapped a run of 32 consecutive scoreless innings by the Cubs pitching staff. And remember, a bunch of those are against the Orioles. It was the longest such streak by the Cubs since August 1971. They went 33 innings without giving up a run. The Cubs' 32 innings scoreless inning pitch streak on the road tied a streak with 1908 for the longest in franchise history on the road. The Cubs pitching staff has held its opponents to just 3 total runs in the past 49 innings. The Cubs are the first team to allow 3 or fewer runs in a 5-game span since the Orioles in September of 2003. But for the Cubs, it's the first time they did it within a single season since September 23 to 27, 1972. So when you're breaking records, Dustin, that came along before you and I were even alive, that says something.
Yeah, those are some good nuggets, as we like to say. So you're feeling really good. Cubs have won 5 in a row. They get 2 games against the dreaded Cardinals on Saturday afternoon. Hayden Wesneski, Lance Lynn, the pitching matchup, and Seiya Suzuki homers in the top of the 1st inning to put the Cubs up 1-0, and then it goes downhill quickly.
So we're just talking about 32 scoreless innings.
Do we have to talk about this? I mean, you talk about putting the Malecki on something. I mean, my goodness gracious.
32 scoreless innings, and then that just all goes up in smoke at the bottom of the 1st. Couldn't have been any worse. Hayden Wesneski gives up 3 straight singles to Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, and Wilson Contreras. So Wilson's single ties the game at 1. Runners at 1st and 2nd, no out. Lars Nootbaar up. Wesneski gets Nootbaar to hit a high chopper, which Hayden fields it. He looks and he just instantly throws the 2nd. He probably should have thrown it just to 1st and get the out. He throws it into center field. Alec Burleson scores to make it 2-1. Then Nolan Arenado hits one to Miles Mastrobuoni, who's been playing a phenomenal third base lately, but he couldn't get the ball out of his glove. Bases are loaded. Brandon Donovan hits one to the first base side that bounces off Wesniewski's glove. A run scores. The Cubs are now down 3-0. Still no outs. But 3-0, not the end of the world, right? Wesniewski strikes out Nolan Gorman and Pedro Paez. So you got now 2 outs, bases loaded, down 3-1, not the end of the world. Wesniewski hits the number 9 hitter with the bases loaded, Michael Ciani, and the Cardinals lead 4-1. To me, Dustin, that was the backbreaker right there.
Yeah, that was not smart.
You get out of that. You get a guy hitting under 220. You get that guy out. You're down 3-1. You got Lance Lynn. You can come back from that. But now it's 4-1. Mason Wynn then singles to make it 6-1. Alec Burleson hits a 3-run homer, and the Cubs are down 9-1 in the first. Game's basically over at that point. With a doubleheader and Javier Assad on a pitch count for the second game, Hayden was going to have to wear this one. He was going to have to give him innings no matter what. You weren't going to pull him. Yeah. Pedro Paez hit an RBI single in the second to make it 10-1. Nolan Gorman hit an RBI double in the bottom of the fourth, which was Hayden's last inning of work. He went 4 innings, gave up 11 runs on 10 hits, only 4 of them earned, but 2 of the errors were on him. 1 walk and 4 Ks. Ethan Roberts pitched 2 scoreless innings. Hunter Biggie had a nice bounce back outing after that bad one on Friday. He gave up no walks or hits and had 2 Ks. And how about David Bodie closing this one out?
Yeah, it's always bad when a position player is out there. And I guess they were desperate considering they had a game to come back to right after this one.
Absolutely. The Cubs offense didn't do much off Lance Lynn. We talked about the Seiya home run in the first. But, I mean, when you're down 9-1, I mean, that's got to be hard. And then Patrick Wisdom hit a home run in the 9th. Morel doubled in the 4th and scored on a sac fly. The Cubs had 3 runs on 7 hits, 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. But this was a game where it was over, and so Council's going to rest Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ. They were pulled in the 5th to give them some rest before the second game of the doubleheader.
That was a smart move. I applaud that move. It was the way to go. All right, so that moves us into game number 3 of this series, and it's the return of Javier Assad.
Yep, you got to flush away that first game. Javier Assad was activated before the game, and he was pitching for the first time since June 23rd, but you could see there was definitely some rust. Did not go well. First batter he faces, Mason Wynn hits a solo home run. He got Alec Burleson grounded out for the first out, but then Wilson Contreras hits a solo home run to put the Cardinals up 2-0.
Have you ever seen, hold on a second. Time out. Have you ever seen a person go slower around the bases than Wilson Contreras did at that moment? I mean, I don't remember him going that slow as a Cub. That was the slowest home run trot I've ever seen. And that was to put them up 2-0.
So, Dustin, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. I don't think Jim Edmonds had any complaints about that, right?
Well, I would like to, part of why I'm saying this is because of Jim Edmonds' comments. I mean, that was ridiculous. You could have used a sundial to time that thing.
Well, yeah, he, and again,
he basically walked. He basically, Crawly, from third to home, he walked. He almost walked around the bases.
And if you looked at his Instagram after Saturday night, they had that he put a video of him with the home run, and then there's a picture underneath the video that kind of had all the Cardinals players like looking like badasses, and it's like, all right, what? Wilson likes playing the heel, and that's what he's going to do. Yeah, but when we talk about Jim Edmonds, then don't be a hypocrite, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Cubs came back in the top of the second. Dansby Swanson singled, and Miguel Amaya hit his 3rd home run of the season to tie the game at 2. PCA doubled, and then Nico Horner, Michael Busch, and Seiya Suzuki would all single. The Cubs are up 4-2. Assad had just a lot of traffic, though. In the second, Matt Carpenter hit a leadoff single. He walked Nolan Gorman, and then Mason Wynn hit a single to right field. But the Cardinals decided to test Seiya's arm again. He threw Matt Carpenter out at the plate easily. So go ahead and keep running into outs, Cardinals. I don't mind that. The next batter, Alec Burleson, hit a sac fly, and the Cubs' lead was cut 4-3. Assad pitched only 2 1/3 innings and gave up 3 runs with 2 walks, no Ks, and he gave up 2 home runs. Thankfully, defensive plays were able to get him out of it. But now that means the bullpen's going to have to cover the rest of the game. And they were doing pretty good. Drew Smiley, Tyson Miller, Mark Leiter, and Porter Hodge pitched 4 2/3 shutout innings. Now, Dustin, Kyle Gibson, that's what frustrated me about losing the first game of the doubleheader. I thought Hayden Wesniewski was going to be okay, and I thought they were going to get to Lance Lynn much more than they did. And I was nervous about facing Kyle Gibson. I thought they did pretty good against Kyle Gibson. Yeah. Gibson dominated the Cubs last time he faced them, but he only went 4 innings, gave up 4 runs on 10 hits with 2 walks and 3 Ks. The Cubs had their chances, though, to add more runs against Gibson. Michael Busch hit a 1-out double in the first inning, but he was stranded. The Cubs had runners at first and second with 2 outs in the third, couldn't get him in. But the biggest missed opportunity came in the fourth. Nico Horner and Michael Busch hit back-to-back singles to put the runners at the corners with no outs. Seiya was called out on strikes for the first out. Ian Happ walked. So now you got the bases loaded, 1 out. And Christopher Morel hits into a double play to end the threat. That one you knew was going to come back to haunt you.
Yep, the absolute last thing you would have wanted him to do. That's where you want him to strike out.
Well, the Cubs were leading 4-3 in the 8th when everything fell apart. Dansby Swanson hit an infield single. He was called safe, but Ali Marmol challenged it. And after a long review, which I hate long reviews, the call was overturned for the first out. He was called safe. Now he's called out. David Bodie would single and Miguel Amaya would walk to put runners at first and second. So it really should have been bases loaded. PCA hits a fly ball that would have been a sac fly, but no good. Nico Horner lines out to end the threat. Then in the bottom of the 8th, Porter Hodge was still in the game. He walked Wilson Contreras. Paul Goldschmidt hits a ground rule double to put runners at second and third, no out. Hodge strikes out Brendan Donovan for the first out, but Nolan Arenado with a clutch single to score 2 runners. The Cubs were now down 5-4. Hodge got Nootbaar and Carpenter out, but the damage is done. When you look at this, the Cubs had one more chance in the 9th with 1 out. Seiya Suzuki singled, advanced to second on a wild pitch. Ian Happ grounded out, but Seiya moved to third with 2 outs. But Christopher Morel, who hit into that double play, struck out to end the game. The Cubs scored 4 runs on 12 hits, but were 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position. They left 10 men on base, and this is what Craig Counsell had to say about missed opportunities.
Well, yeah, I think, look, we did a nice job against Gibson, putting lots of traffic on. I think the 4th inning would be the inning you look back and say we left at least a run out there. First and third, nobody out with 3, 4, 5 up, and just couldn't. We ended up not converting there, and the bullpen was wonderful. Those guys did a nice job. The game kind of, for Javi, kind of struggling a little bit and maybe not giving us everything we wanted, but the rest of the guys did a really nice job. We put the game in really good position. We asked Porter to do a tough job, to get 5 outs in a 1-run game, go through the middle of their lineup. The walk probably hurt as much as anything. And us not being able to cash in the runs, and it's a 1-run loss.
Yep, there's been plenty of 1-run losses in the first half, Dustin. So they lose both games of the doubleheader. And to me, like I said, we saw everything that made the Cubs bad in May and June all in one day. Just not cashing in, runners in scoring position, defensive, lapses. Just not a great day on Saturday.
Yeah, I just don't understand why they trusted him for a 5-out save in that situation. I just don't get it.
I would counter on that. I'd say Porter Hodge has been one of their best relievers, and that was what they were going to try to go with there. I guess my question for you then is, if not Porter Hodge, who in that situation would you have liked? Because to me, I think Porter Hodge has really he's entered Craig Counsell's circle of trust, so to speak.
Definitely in the circle of trust, but I'm not throwing that guy in any high leverage situation, right out of the chute when they get back. Listen, once he got me out of the, he got that first out, I would have probably been done with him. I would have seen what other options I had. Going through that lineup's tough. Pat kept warning everybody on the broadcast, listening to the end of that game on the radio, just said it just didn't feel right. Very tough to get these final outs. You got to have a little bit more cushion. Don't get comfortable. Kept warning us as fans, and he was absolutely right. When you go through 14 runners in scoring position, you do not win a whole lot of games. So the great feelings from Friday are completely gone by the time we wake up on Sunday. But Jameson Taillon started off this streak, and you wanted to see if he could put what would this be, the 7th or 8th consecutive quality start if he was able to do so on Sunday?
It would have been the 7th, I believe. So, the Cardinals, though, did get on the board first in the second inning. Brandon Donovan and Nolan Arenado back-to-back singles to put runners at the corner. Tyone struck out Lars Nootbaar, but Nolan Gorman flied out, so sac fly on that. That allowed Arenado to move to second with 2 outs, and then Pedro Paje singled to left to score 2 runs. But Arenado was thrown out at second. So, again, Cardinals running into outs, but the Cubs were down 2-0. Now the offense came roaring back in the third. PCA hit his second home run of the season to put the Cubs on the board, 2-1. Nico Horner doubled, and with 2 outs, Seiya Suzuki hit an RBI single to tie the game. Then in the top of the 5th, back-to-back jacks, 2 of the most unlikely candidates, Tomas Nido and PCA, back-to-back. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card for this game. The Cubs are up 4-2. For PCA, that was his second home run in the game. Top of the 6th, Seiya Suzuki singled, and Christopher Morel homered to put the Cubs up 6-2. Jamison Tyone gave up a solo home run to Alec Burleson in the bottom of the 6th, and with 2 outs, his day was done. Dustin, he just missed his quality start. Just missed. But, another strong game. He went 5 2/3 inning, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits, 3 Ks. Drew Smiley and Jorge Lopez pitched 3 1/3 scoreless innings out of the pen. And the Cubs added some more insurance runs in the 8th when Ian Happ and Christopher Morel went back-to-back jacks, second time in the game, and they win this one 8-3. Dustin, all the good feeling that was going on Saturday came back on Sunday. Quickly. The Cubs scored 8 runs on 11 hits, 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. But Dustin, even though that may not seem that good, it doesn't matter when you're hitting the long ball, right? If you can hit that long ball.
They slugged, yeah.
You hit that long ball, man. That's just one of those things. When we talk about PCA right there, Cubs rookies, 22 years old or younger, with 2 home runs in a stolen base in a single game. In 1957, Jerry Kendall. 1982, Ryan Sandberg. Ian Happ in 2017. And now PCA joins that list. And again, when we talk about the long ball, 6 home runs on Sunday. That was a season high. First career multi-home run games for PCA and Morel. First time the Cubs have had 2 players with multi-home run games since May 3rd, 2021. How about this pair? Javi Baez and Patrick Wisdom. First time the Cubs have had 2 sets of back-to-back home runs since May 28th, 2019 at Houston. And it was the first time for against the Cardinals since Dunston and Sandberg in 1989, the boys of Zimmer.
Boy, that takes you back a little bit. Pretty cool.
Now, Dustin, you brought this up, and Christopher Morel hits a home run. Game is on TV in St. Louis, being called by former Cubs, current Cardinals announcer Chip Carey, and on color is former Cardinals Cubs outfielder Jim Edmonds. Morel hits a home run. He kind of turns backward and then kind of runs around, and then he always does the God celebration at the end, praise, whatever he does. And Edmonds had this to say about Morel after the home run. Quote, Christopher Morel's celebration is a joke. I don't mind saying it at all. I've never seen anything like it. You're a .229 hitter, and you're running around the bases like you're Barry Bonds. What's that? I mean, come on. I mean,
little unnecessary. Now, I thought the bat flip might have been a little excessive. I thought that was what he was going to have a problem with. He kind of twirled the bat back at his own dugout. At least He wasn't smart, dumb enough to twirl it at the Cardinals dugout. But as far as what he did going around the bases, I had no problem with that at all, because he also does that all the time.
I've seen, again,
you mentioned nothing extra special. There was nothing extra special about that because it was the Cardinals.
No, and I remember Wilson Contreras, like you said, he's walking around the bases the other day. I remember his bat flip against the White Sox where he almost threw it on top of the roof of Wrigley. I mean, it's you know what? I'm tired of baseball announcers, Jim Edmonds among them. I'll go with John Smoltz, that seem to hate people having fun in a baseball game. Who cares? Who cares? He didn't do anything. I didn't think the bat flip was egregious, but the bat flip was egregious. He turned around and looked at his dugout. Whatever, just get over it. You know what? Kids like that. Maybe old guys like us are going to get crabby and wave our fists at the clouds. But you know what? That's fun. It makes for good social media clips. Try to grow the game and stop having announcers that hate baseball. We don't do this. We drill them into ear hole. Shut up. Shut up. If you want to get the guy out, then strike him out. How about that?
All right, strike him out again. If we could play both ways, again, we talked about it earlier. That trot around the bases by Wilson Contreras could have, been judged with a sundial.
Didn't bother me one bit. But you know what? Get him back. Get him back, and that's what the Cubs did. Yep. Get him back. I don't care. Let moonwalk around the bases for all I care. But you know what? Do your job, and it won't matter, right? The Cubs win this one. They're the ones that get the last laugh on this. But Dustin, we come now and end the first half of the season. The Cubs are still in last place. Milwaukee's at first, 55-42. St. Louis, 50-46. Again, you would have liked to have taken at least one more, but oh well. Pittsburgh, 48-48, killed the White Sox, but who doesn't? Cincinnati Reds, 47-50, and the Cubs in last, 47-51. But so if you take a look, though, and if you're on the 670 Score YouTube channel, take a look at the last 10. The Cubs are 7-3 in their last 10, while the Brewers went 3-7, Dustin. So that's kind of the first sign of adversity we've really seen from the Brewers. And I almost wish that the All-Star break wasn't coming now when the Cubs are hot and the Brewers are hurting. But the other thing to kind of take a look at, and I'm going to put this up here, is the wild card standings going in here. The Braves, I mean, they're going to be tough to catch, but they're not completely ahead of it. But when you're talking about it right here, the Cubs are in this big, other than the Nationals and Miami, everybody's still in it. The Cubs, considering everything that happened, are 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. They're going to have to jump a lot of teams, but there is a lot of baseball left to be played in this second half. We got months left to go. We got half of July, August, and September. You can still hopefully do some damage and still get in this. I don't want to sit there and throw in the towel on this season just yet. We can talk more about this before the second half starts, but I still, if I'm the Cubs right now, I'm standing pat.
Yeah. I mean, they might be light buyers. I don't expect anything huge, but I also don't think unless, somebody knocks their socks off for Jameson Taillon, that would be at this point the only thing I could see them trading. But you'd have to absolutely knock the socks off because the guy is relatively cheap. I'm not suggesting or saying I want them to do that, but that's the only thing I can see happening. Let's hope not. This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 3. It's episode 57. The Cubs close out the first half. Don't forget to listen. Don't forget to leave Crawly and I one of those 5-star reviews. And you can email us, flythew670@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us. Crawly just talked about it, but watch us on the 670 The Score YouTube page. On Friday, the Cubs president of baseball ops, Jed Hoyer, appeared on the Parkins Spiegel Show with 670 The Score, talking about the Cubs heading into the break. And we've got a few clips from this interview that we wanted to share with you if you haven't heard it, and then get our reaction to what the Cubs president, Jed Hoyer, had to say.
Yeah, it was a really good interview by Parkins and Spiegel. And if you want to hear the whole thing, you can do that on the Odyssey app. The thing to me that you really want to look at when we go through this first half is the biggest free agent pickup that the Cubs really made. Well, Shota would be that, but Craig Counsell was the big story, Dustin, when, in the offseason and all of that. And when I listened to it, I was curious to see, what Jed Hoyer would have to say about Craig Counsell. A couple things kind of caught my ear. Let's hear this first clip right here.
Safe to say this is the most you've ever involved a manager in your career as an executive?
Yeah, I would say that, but I would also say he has a different skill set than some of the other guys I've been around. I've been around some really great managers and, Hall of Fame managers, and I think that, they just probably took a little bit less interest in the front office part sometimes, and so I did, this is the first time I've had a manager that really, like I said, he worked in the front office. I think his mind works that way. So I just think it's a different interest level. Terry Francona was an incredible manager without question, but I don't think his mind didn't gravitate towards some of those nuances or aspects of the game. I think Craig's does, and I think it kind of leads to more conversations and more involvement.
Dustin, I was curious on your opinion on this right here. I'm wondering if Joe Madden heard this and kind of was, what? Because I think that Joe Madden really was into players and wanting to be a part of that. I was surprised he brought up Terry Francona, obviously, who he managed and stuff like that. But to say that, Joe Madden wouldn't have wanted been a part of looking at players and helping to put the team, probably didn't think exactly like Craig Counsell because of his previous experience in the front office. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I really thought that was interesting as well. And I think it's a great observation by you when you bring up somebody like Joe Madden. What would have been different if Joe Madden had gotten to be involved? And there's some speculation out there, what's fact, what's fiction. Eventually we'll find out and hopefully share it with you when we find out. But, there was a lot of talk about how much that Jed and Theo were actually, sending Joe Madden suggested lineups, right? And telling him who to play and who not to play and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's something, and if I had one complaint about Craig Counsell in the first half, this would be it. I want to play this clip here.
Counsell is disarmingly steady publicly. Like, we interview him every other week. I've known him for a long time. I know he's crazy competitive, so I'm sure you've seen some ups and downs in the emotion, but who is that? You have to calm Tom down? Is Carter throwing stuff? Who's the hothead in the circle of trust?
I'm probably always the emotional one, but no, it's really impressive. It is.
It's crazy. Counsell
is so steady. Well, and it's what you need to go through. You go through 162 games, and like I was saying earlier, even the best seasons I've been a part of, there was at least a 2-3 week period where we were awful. And so. Unfortunately, we stacked those 2 months on top of each other. But the idea, he's coming in, day out, being the same person, believing in the players, being encouraging. He does that every single day. And, I think he really does. I've been around managers that don't get too low, but they can get pretty high, at times. And I feel like with him, it's just nope. You going after a win or a loss. There's not a lot of difference in demeanor. We kind of talk through roster moves or talk through, something, but there's not, he's kind of on to the next thing very quickly, which I think is probably a lifetime in the game watching, and is probably his personality. But I do think that steadiness, it really does pay off because, players need a steady hand. They need to know who's making decisions. They need to know the person making decisions every day is steady. And he is that, times 100.
I will agree that I think it's important. I think sometimes people make too much of the old days where you had Billy Martin and Lou Piniella and guys fighting bullpen guys. You remember that was Lou Piniella and was it Rob Dibble or can't remember who it was. He got in a big fight.
One of the nasty
boys or Lou Piniella, or Billy Martin or some. I don't think that happens. The flipping of the buffet of the food. You don't need that. And I think Joe Madden was a guy that really talked again. You celebrate a win 30 minutes, you mourn a loss 30 minutes, and you move on. I think that's important. At the same time, Dustin, I feel sometimes I could use a little fire from Craig Counsell. And especially, this is the thing that bothers me. Seiya Suzuki and Christopher Morel are two guys. I think Christopher Morel said had the most calls against him that they were called strikes, but they were really balls. I think, right. and Seiya has had some bad situations, same type of thing. I need you sometimes to go out there and argue for your players.
Defend your hitters, right. Defend your hitters.
I could use a little bit of more of that out of Craig Counsell, especially, like I said, especially when it's egregious. Like I feel like with Seiya and Morel, if these guys are getting rung up on bad calls, you got to at least be barking. You got to get on the top step. I'm not saying you got to get in a guy's face or something, but I could use a little bit more fire in those situations. And it puts umps on notice that we're not going to sit there and let you continue to make bad calls against this guy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've said on the air that I feel like he's like a passenger. He's sitting shotgun. He's almost like in one of those little those motorcycles where there's the driver of the motorcycle and
the sidecar.
He's in the sidecar. The players are the drivers, and he's sitting in that little sidecar.
Now, Dustin, I think the pitching has been a pleasant surprise. The Cubs pitching in the first half has been great. The bullpen, again, you can argue that Jed should have done more, but to me, I will say injuries have killed the bullpen, and they continue to because we just lost Luke Little for who knows how long. But to me, the most puzzling thing has been the Cubs' offense and defense in the first half. And he was asked about the offense, and here is what Jed had to say.
Yeah, well, I think you always want to hit more line drives. I mean, really, if you there's a lot of things we were 29th and 30th in if you go back to that stretch. And I know, looking at it, it was, at one point, I think over about a 60-game stretch, I think we had the lowest batting average and the lowest slug, which is a pretty bad recipe to score runs. And, when I look at our team, last year, I think we were sixth in baseball in run scoring. This year we're well below that. You would look at, stats like slugging percentage and batting average were well below where we were. So I do feel like, we were, and situationally, I would add, with guys in scoring position for that 60 or so games, we were dead last in a lot of categories by a pretty significant margin. But we're also the same group of players that were, really in the top 2 or 3 in those categories in April. And not surprisingly, during this streak, we look more like the April team than that. And so I do feel like, we spent so much time looking at, like, why is our offense not performing? What is going on? Why is this happening at the same time? I fully expect that we're going to get better over the rest of the season. I do think, like, there's, who knows? Like, we last year we were 6th. Maybe that was a hair higher than we probably should be in run scoring. But ultimately, I know we're not the team we have been so far. And so my hope is that, like, we have some positive regression. I think we've seen, Michael Bush is playing great right now. Ian's had a really nice stretch. Hopefully Seiya's getting hot. I think as we get some of these guys performing and getting hot, and especially doing it situationally, I think we'll see our offense pick up. We are not the offense we were for 2 months. My hope is that, as we start to have that regression to the mean, my hope is that we score a lot of runs, and that helps us, just helps us spread a bunch of games out.
That offense, like he said, May and June was just brutal, basically. And we go over the tail of the tape all the time, Dustin, and that the Cubs were bottom in pretty much every category: average, slug, runners in scoring position. And a lot of guys have just had bad years. And when even Nico Horner, I mean, he's getting better, he's improving. A lot of these guys, but for May and June, whether it was Nico, Morel struggled all season. Dansby Swanson's just been absolutely awful. No slug from Cody Bellinger. These are all things that just none of us expected going into this season. And even though Nico's doing better and Michael Bush has been everything, we hope. And I'm so shocked at how good his defense has improved since the beginning of the season. But it can't be 3 guys carrying this team. You saw the Sunday game, the last game against the Cardinals, when you have PCA and when you have Thomas Nido, when Dansby's starting to get hot. That's what's been changing this offense. That's the difference right now.
Right. The offense can't nearly be as bad as it was. There's no doubt about that. That I will totally agree. I mean, John Heyman told us today that the Cubs are better than the record indicates, and says there's no way that they are sellers. So kind of step in step with what Hoyer's telling Parkins Spiegel there.
Right. And but Jed he's very clear-minded about what's happening right now. And here's what he had to say.
Belief, it has to wane a bit, right? Like it's not like you don't believe in the guys individually, but you can't deny reality.
Of course, absolutely. And, but like how we play over this next stretch, I think that does mean a lot. I mean, this is a strange game, and our cold streak lasted much longer than I expected. I kept waiting for this to end, and it didn't. But then I look at the 2 teams in the World Series last year. They both had really long bad stretches. I look at this year, for example, the Yankees. They were incredible, and now I think they've lost 8 straight series. So in our sport, there's definitely ups and downs. Our down was much longer and deeper than I think we expected. But if we start to play well, I think at some point we balance those things out. And I do believe that we're a talented team. I think we're a deep team. And I think that we, at our best, I think we can compete and make the playoffs. But we've made that a very difficult thing by getting to 9 under and by really, by sort of giving up the early cushion that we had and going all the way in the other direction. Now we have to play really good baseball, I was thinking, to kind of get back to neutral. And we started that process now, but it has to keep going.
So, again, going back to this wild card thing, I mean, in front of the Cubs are the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Pirates, the Reds, the Giants. And so I think the only team they still have games against the Diamondbacks and stuff, but I think the only team right now.
Let's start off Crawly right off the bat, right? Friday
Right.
afternoon, they get a 3-game series with the Diamondbacks. Feel free to win that series right out of the chute.
But when you look at the wild card teams, they don't have the tiebreaker on pretty much any of them. They don't have them against the Pirates. They don't have them against the Reds. I think they have it against the Giants. But you have a lot of teams that you have to leapfrog.
A lot of teams you got to pass, right? But at least they've got games with the Pirates and the Reds coming up. That's a fact. So there are plenty of those games left.
And you got to be able to. But again, you can't have any more lulls. Though you've already dug yourself a big hole. You're going to have to be playing easily above 500 ball for the rest of the season if you're going to do this. Now, Dustin, it's odd because this has been such a mirror of the 23 season. Here's what Jed had said comparing each of these.
To keep going, but like in terms of, like having a really long period and then playing great. I mean, I remember the stretch we had before London last year. I think we got to 10 under in LA, and then we went to San Francisco and won 2 out of 3, and then really hit. I was looking at the scores. We really hit through that period. I think we played the Pirates and we played actually Baltimore and then the Pirates again. And really we swung the bats and we went into London on a high note, and then we kind of fell back down again and then did it again. But really the thing last year that it was a catalyst for all of our different hot streaks was the offense. And we had a really good offense last year, and that's been really what I've clearly been missing into that cold stretch was just like the total inability to spread games out, to score. Felt like we were playing a 1-run or tie game every single night. And, the nice thing about this stretch, and I hope it continues, is that we've been able to spread some games out and give some breathing room. And I think just as a team that has such a huge impact, mentally, it has an impact on the bullpen, it has impact on the hitters. So I do feel like this part has felt like that in terms of scoring some runs and actually winning some games that aren't 2-1 or 3-2.
So again, a lot of good stuff in here, and there's one more that I want to get when we talk next time that I think is important that we'll cover. But I thought it was a really good interview by Parkins and Spiegel. And again, you go to the Odyssey app and check the whole thing out.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It is episode 57. It is season number 3. The Cubs are closing out the first half. We're getting ready for the All-Star game. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. You can email Crawly and I. That's right, flythew670 gmail.com. All right, Crawly, let's go through some news and notes before we do a little fun and draft ourselves a little home run derby squad.
Speaking of draft, the MLB draft is now in day 2, and we're going to have plenty of info on all the Cubs draft picks for our next podcast. In day 1, though, the Cubs selected Florida State third baseman Cam Smith. So Cam Smith was their first pick. And in the second round, they picked first baseman, third baseman Cole Mathis. He also pitched a little in relief, Dustin. So, the Cubs went with college players for the first 2 picks. So we'll see what happens. But again, we'll have full draft coverage with all the picks coming up on the next episode of Fly the W.
Can't wait to get into that and learn more about these guys.
Yep. Now, speaking of All-Star Weekend, we just got through with the Futures game on Sunday. The Cubs had 2 prospects participate in the Futures game. Matt Shaw pinch hit in the 5th and later replaced Futures game MVP Cam Collier at third base. He went hitless with a strikeout and 2 plate appearances. James Triantos, he was added because Owen
Casey, right?
Owen Casey, yeah, his back was bothering him a little bit. So, he only had 1 at bat. He grounded and he played left field. But more than anything, Dustin, it's just an amazing experience. This is a great picture right here of the 3 of them. You can see you got Triantos in the Smokies hat. You got Ballesteros in the Iowa hat. But, Dustin, for our distinct listeners or viewers that are seeing this picture right here, Matt Shaw has an Iowa Cubs hat on. He does not have a Tennessee Smokies hat on.
Interesting.
So you can assume, I would say, that Matt Shaw will start the second half with the Iowa Cubs.
Very interesting. Very good detective work, by the way.
Now, Moises Ballesteros was there. He participated in the inaugural Future Skill Showcase. I thought this was really cool, Dustin. If you don't have a chance to see it, you go on MLB Network. They'll have it. I think they might have some clips of it online as well. But he did really well. The first challenge, hitters got 8 swings or bunts to earn points on each target value. Hitters got points for hitting outfield targets on the fly or on a bounce, and they earned points 8, 16, or 24 by landing the ball on a bunt target. And Moises Ballesteros finished in second place in this challenge with 32 points. So if you take a look here, this was the hit it here. So you had these targets in the infield and targets in the outfield. And they also had some obstacles where the fielders would be, so you couldn't just easily hit it. You had to kind of get it over where a shortstop or a second baseman would be to try to get some of these places. And then for the bunt challenge, you had to try to land it on here to get points. So they're like a bullseye, 8, 16, or 24. So Moises did really well again in that part. So that was pretty cool, finishing second on that one. Second round was Call Your Shot. And this round showcased control and placement, and players called their shot while taking 8 swings to left, center, and right. So the hitter got to pick which field he was going to. And then if he was successful, then he got to pick one of the 2 remaining fields. So you could say, I'm going to go left, right, center. You go left, center, right, whatever you wanted. So you're calling your shot on that. And so once you got all 3, you could call the shot to any field with your remaining swing. So if you're more comfortable going left, you could call left, whatever. Moises finished third in this contest with 18 points. And at this point, he's in third place in the competition. The final round was called Swing for the Fences. The round most closely resembled a home run derby. You got points for the homers, but they were weighted. 6 points for a pull side or center fielder home run, 12 points for any opposite field shots, oppo tacos. And if a hitter went deep on consecutive swings, he received an additional 6-point streak bonus. And if he hit more than 2 in a row, every home run in the streak got a 6-point bonus. Moises tied for second in the home run challenge with 12 points and finished the competition third place with 62 points. But Dustin, the hard thing is he had 3 swings to hit 1 home run. If he would have done that, he would have won the competition because he would have had 6 points and the first place guy was 4 points ahead of him. So he didn't get that final home run, but a really good showing by Moises Ballesteros. And I wanted to, one cool thing to me about this is it's just a great experience for all of the young guys to kind of come out there to show what they got against other young prospects. But I have this cool picture right here. It's Ken Griffey Jr. talking hitting with James Triantos and Moises Ballesteros. So Junior's in that classic, left-handed stance. What an experience for those guys to be picking the brain of one of the greatest hitters of all time. Really enjoyed that one.
Oh, it's a great photo. I thought you had some mysterious audio you were going to share with us, but that was a great that was a great photo.
I would have loved to heard what they got. And maybe if we get a chance and we talk to one of those guys in the future, we'll ask them what they said, but it was a lot of fun. And so now, Dustin, obviously the All-Star game is on Tuesday. We're recording this on Monday. We know that Shota Imanaga is the only representative for the Cubs. And so what's going to end up happening now is that he's going to get 1 inning. And so that'll be that. We'll see.
How early do you think he gets in?
Maybe 5th, 6th inning, I think.
Okay. Interesting.
But tonight, on Monday night, is my favorite part of the All-Star festivities, the Home Run Derby. And Dustin, we were talking about it earlier. There's a new format. I like it. Did you have a chance to look at all the new kind of rules?
I did. It's going to be a little crisper. It's going to move more quickly. It's also going to advance the best 4 hitters right off the bat. But I have to say I'm a sucker for any kind of bracket, right? So I kind of like that. It's man on man, and you advance. So it's also some some gamesmanship between the 2 guys, and it's not just, well, the 4 best advance, and then we'll reseed them after that based on how they did.
Well, I like it because what's going to happen is it will not begin bracket style. All 8 hitters are competing against each other. Sometimes in the past, you'd see 2 guys have this amazing competition.
Right, and then the one guy be out. I get that, but that's just part of luck of the draw. I mean, to me, I'm just a big sucker for brackets because then you have an opportunity to actually predict things. The way this is going, of course, you can still wager on who you think is going to win. But with the brackets, you can kind of see what the second round matchup is going to be potentially, right? We've predicted that in the past. So now it's harder to predict. It's all based on who the top 4 guys are moving on to round number 2.
Right. And then once you get the top 4 guys, they advance to the semifinals, and that's where you're going to have that bracket that you're
Then we'll
familiar
get a
with,
bracket.
the
Yep.
knockout style right there. So a couple other things here is that if there's a tie between 2 competitors in the first round, advancing to the second round and or seeding for the second round will be determined by the furthest home run in the opening round. For the first time, Dustin, there's going to be a maximum number of pitches thrown to a competitor in the
That's
early
interesting
round.
too. Maximum number of pitches. Yes.
Yeah, you can't just sit there and keep waiting for your pitch if some guy's not getting it. So I think that's going to make the pitchers.
This is a made-for-TV event, Crawly.
Yep. The first round and semifinals will end after either 3 minutes or 40 pitches with 1 timeout permitted. The finals will consist of either 2 minutes or 27 pitches with 1 timeout permitted. At the conclusion of all rounds, competitors will be granted 3 bonus outs as opposed to 30 seconds in previous years. If a competitor hits a home run 425 feet, they'll be granted a 4th bonus out. And in the semifinals and finals, any tiebreakers would be determined with a 60-second swing off. Any time beyond that will be settled with 3 swing offs. So I am super excited about this, Dustin. And we decided that you and I were going to make our predictions. We're going to do this fair and square. We're going to have a draft. For those listening, you got Gunnar Henderson, 27 home runs, Marcell Ozuna, 26, Jose Ramirez, 23, Teoscar Hernandez with 19, the polar bear, Pete Alonso with 18, Alex Bohm with the Phillies of 11, Adolis Garcia with 17, and Bobby Witt Jr. with 16. So, Dustin, I am nothing more than a gentleman. I'm going to let you choose who you would like first.
I will take Pete Alonso, the polar bear, competing in his 5th consecutive home run derby and the defending champion.
So Pete Alonso, in that case, I am going to take Jose Ramirez as my first pick.
I will then follow that up with Marcell Ozuna. I think he likes a little bit of the flair, a little bit of the dramatics.
I'm going to take Gunnar Henderson. I'm hoping he's going to try to make a name for himself in his first home run derby.
All right. Then I will take the hometown boy hitting in his home stadium, Adolis Garcia. I like that idea. I like the fact that he knows his park. He's going to have, probably somebody very close to him that didn't have to travel very far. They're probably going to have a little bit of extra practice. So for the 3rd pick on my team, I think that's some value right there. Adolis Garcia.
I'm going to go with Teoscar Hernandez. He hits the ball loud. So let's see if Teoscar Hernandez can come through clutch.
All right. I'm going to stay National League. I'll give you Bobby Witt. I'll take Alec Baum.
All righty. So when this is all done, I think it's going to be a fun event. I hope the fans enjoy it as much. I know you and I are going to enjoy it and be glued to the TV, Dustin. But, I'm just waiting. I'm praying MLB will one day just realize that Wrigley Field would be a great place to have a home run derby, a great place to have all-star festivities. It's been way too long, Dustin.
Yeah, maybe someday. But the other thing too is I hope that there's like a surprise visit from Chris Berman. I miss the back. I like that kind of stuff, but that's just me. All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Fly the W, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, we're on Twitter. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com, and you can watch us. That's right, by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the home run derby, enjoy the all-star game itself, and we'll be back probably Thursday, Friday to wrap these 2 events up and then to preview the second half of the season and give you guys a little bit more information about who the Cubs have drafted.
Yes, sir. Get that popcorn out. I think these rule changes are going to make the home run derby even better. I'm all for Chris Berman and Rob Manfred. Get the All-Star game back to Wrigley. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!